This is the Plays with Cars YouTube channel. I'm a gearhead, and this is an e-tron, which is a full electric vehicle. And in this video, I'm going to attempt to answer the question of whether or not we get along. So starting an electric car isn't really any different than any other modern car. You have your key in the pocket and you hit the button and everything lights up. In fact, if you didn't know it was an electric car, it wouldn't feel any different. All right, so driving an electric car, this isn't my first time. I do have actually quite a bit of an experience with electric cars in general. I've driven, some mundane ones like a Nissan Leaf, as well as some performance ones. In fact, I've actually taken a Tesla Model S P85 Plus around Portland International Raceway and have ridden in like Tesla Model 3 performances at the autocross. So, I've got some experience with driving them around, including in performance environments. But this is kind of the first long-term one we've been in, and it's been interesting. Stop. So the Audi e-tron drives pretty much like our other Audis and any other gas car, just it's got a lot more power on the down low thanks to the electric engines. Otherwise, it drives the same. It doesn't feel any heavier. It doesn't feel like you're sacrificing anything. It doesn't feel like you're driving one of the earlier iterations of what an electric car, was, kind of a glorified golf cart. This, just goes a little better. It's a lot punchier too, but you have to put it into a sport mode in order to do it. Which, I don't know, I suppose isn't that uncommon, but it does give it significantly more punch. One thing that this does have that's similar to our plug-in hybrid Audi is the regenerative brakes, and how it works is with these crazy little flappy paddles like you'd have for the DSG gearbox. Instead, it's you pull the paddle and it increases the amount of charge recovery on the brakes, and so it kind of like drags, almost like downshifting your engine on a downhill. So it's useful if you've got a big amount of hill to go down, but otherwise they're just kind of there, and I don't know, they don't make a whole lot of sense. But other than that, I mean, it's a regular car layout, right? You've got a regular shifter, regular gas pedal, regular steering wheel and controls, and unlike a Tesla that just has, the center screen, you've got all the regular gauges and everything as well. So it makes it a lot more normal in here. So what are the downsides then? If it drives like a regular car and it actually has good performance, well, they're not actually with the car. So we've lived with this particular e-tron for over a week now, and it's my first kind of real long-term having to live with an electric car experience. And again, the car itself has been great. It's been the charging infrastructure. And I mean, we're up here in the Pacific Northwest where that infrastructure is actually pretty decent. The problems you run into are there's 4 different connectors for the electric cars. So luckily this car has 2 different charge ports, which I'll show you later on in the video. And so it could use 2 of them, but that still doesn't make up for the other 2. The other big problem you have is you get to a charging location and the chargers are closed. They either don't work, or there's somebody on there clogging it, or it's like a reduced charging rate or something like that. We've run into so many issues with that. And whereas in our hybrid that we own, if the chargers are off or something isn't working, we can just put gas in it and keep going. With the pure electric car, you really are stuck, and that could be really hard, especially in something like this that doesn't have necessarily the greatest battery capacity or the fastest charge rate. So one thing I will say about the charging infrastructure, Tesla, love them, hate them as a car, for a company and a charging infrastructure, they have the best out there. The superchargers are everywhere. They work more often than the other stuff. They're faster. And frankly, them signing with everybody but Volkswagen Auto Group so far, to change the standard for all electric cars to the Tesla plug-in is a huge deal, because that charging network is more important than anything else. If you can actually charge your car, if you live somewhere where your charging network is great, or you can already access the supercharger network, I really don't see any downsides to it. It's a fantastic car and a fantastic daily driver, and you get some better performance to boot.
Go.
All right, so does it have any soul though, right? That's the big question this video is kind of about. Now that we've lived with it, we've discovered the positives of having one, the negatives of having one. Is it something that a gearhead wants, right? And when I say gearhead, I do truly mean gearhead. In the last 25 years, I've owned over 150 cars, including some absolute bona fides, right? Corvette Z06, SVT Cobra, Porsche Boxster S, and we actually use our cars, hence the name, Plays with Cars, right? We've done Tail of the Dragon, we go drag racing, autocrossing, track days, all sorts of things. We modify our cars, build them up. Can you do any of that with an electric car, and does it work? Well, kind of yes and no. Right now, the electric cars that, you know, float my boat, that are something I would really want to own and put in the garage next to our other keeper cars, are really expensive. The Porsche Taycan Turbo S is really awesome. The Audi RS e-tron GT, like, absolutely does it for me. They're all 6-digit cars, right? The only full electric car that is a performance car but also costs like a normal amount of money right now is the Tesla Model 3 Performance. And there's just a lot with that, right? In between the center screen thing and all the stuff with the company, I can see why, you know, that would turn a lot of us gearheads off. And frankly, right now, the modification market isn't quite there yet. We are starting to get lots of performance suspension parts and brakes and things like that. But as far as tuning goes, right, nobody has really cracked tuning an electric car. And then hardware is something that hasn't happened yet. So, you know, where I come from doing slot cars, and I know lots of you do remote control stuff with electric motors, right? You can upgrade those, right? You can hot rod them. You can put hotter armatures in and better windings and stronger magnets and like really make power. And I know that that's coming for electric cars. One day you will go to the drag strip and there will be people with like super hot armatures and crazy batteries doing all the same kind of hot roddy things we do now with gas stuff, just differently. A lot like the RC revolution. When I was working at a hobby shop 25 years ago, it was all nitro cars. Nobody had an electric RC car because those were kids' toys. Nowadays, it's the exact opposite. Everybody has electric RC cars and they perform amazingly, but it took a while for that market to happen. And we're just on the cusp of that happening with EV stuff. So it makes it kind of hard to answer. Right now, in this moment, in 2023, I don't think we're there yet. But I think that the next generation of EVs, the ones that are all going to be on the same charging network, and the ones that are going to become a little bit more standardized, and as we get aftermarket companies that are more willing to do things with controllers and motors and batteries, the more this is going to turn into a hot rod market. There's already a bunch of companies putting powertrains into classic cars and things like that. And so you're getting somewhere. Even General Motors has an EV crate motor and controller and everything, which is like a pretty cool concept. So, you know, it's an exciting time to be an enthusiast. It's an exciting time to be an enthusiast that's non-agnostic, you know, that's brand agnostic and fuel agnostic, and like really excited to see what the future holds. But it's also like a trepidatious time. They're not quite there yet. And, you know, frankly, that's okay. So basically it comes down to keep an eyeball out. I think that we are seeing a new crop of performance stuff, a new crop of enthusiasts that are going to be willing to work on cars and modify cars and do things to full electrics. And it's going to be really exciting. And if you want to be a part of it, I think you totally can. And if you don't, it's okay, but it doesn't mean the death of hot rodding. All right, so full disclosure, I do own a plug-in hybrid. So we got an Audi Q5 e-tron plug-in hybrid a couple of years ago, and so this is our charger at the house. But again, as I mentioned in the video, when you have a plug-in hybrid, if the charger isn't working or somebody's hogging it or something like that, you just put gas in it and keep going. And I do really, really, really like that part about it. It also makes it a little bit more enthusiast friendly, right? Because I could still hop up the motor, I could still put a tune on it, bigger turbo, injectors, whatever we want to do, and still keep this working, which is like what made the original Holy Trinity supercars so cool. You know, the P1, the LaFerrari, and the 918. So anyways, this is our plug. This is the J1173 or something like that, but let me show you on the e-tron. So the charge port for this is actually pretty smart. It's up front here, and you push the little button and the door folds down and you can get to the plug, and away you go. Super easy. The cool part is you can actually get an option to have one on this side as well, and on this side it has the other charger. So you can see on this side it's the same port, but then there's these two high voltage things. This is called the CCS, and so this is the side that you want for the high voltage. So on the e-tron, this side is the one that they all come with, and the other side is your optional add-on. So let's talk home charging. We got the controller with our e-tron, and charging at home really isn't that big of a deal. We plug it in at night, and in the morning it's full up and ready to go. But we also only get about 20 to 25 miles on electricity before the gas motor kicks in. But again, for your daily driver, for the runabout, for the family vehicle, it's great, right? We get all of the benefits of the EV, you know, with the low gas or no gas costs and all that stuff, without any of the drawbacks, because again, you just keep going. It also hasn't really added anything to our electrical bill. Again, Pacific Northwest, pretty low electricity, hydroelectric, and all that stuff, but we don't see an increase charging the car versus not charging the car. With this though, the battery is so much bigger. One, it doesn't fill up at home at all. Basically, you plug this thing in and it barely adds anything to it. You really have to go to the fast charger to really, you know, top this thing up. But that's also because we're on 110. We don't even have this hooked up to 220 yet. If we did have it on 220, we would actually get some substantial amount of juice through here. But this, like, I'm afraid to see what our energy bill cost is going to do, even just having this thing for a week plugged in here. So it's definitely something to think about. But again, other than having it plugged in, there really isn't a difference in the day-to-day life of this versus our gas cars. It's just a little different. It all comes down to the enthusiast part of it and whether or not this is going to float your boat as a gearhead. One place where you do see the difference in day-to-day life is, well, wrenching. With cars like this, there's stuff I always have to do. Oil changes, spark plugs, coil packs, you know, there's maintenance, there's regular maintenance. And with that, there isn't. And that's a little weird. On the one hand, it's nice to not have to screw with all the lubricants and all that stuff all the time and you know, have to maintain the car in that way. But on the other hand, it means there's less I can do to personalize it or customize it or add on to it. And while I won't miss putting in yet another air oil separator after a track day, I'm also gonna miss being able to change the tune on it for more power. I'm gonna miss putting a smaller pulley on the supercharger, things of that nature. So is there room in my personal garage for an EV as an enthusiast car? Well, like I was saying in the car, it's a yes or no. Right now, I think we're not quite there yet. It feels a lot like early days of smartphones, right? Where you had a whole bunch of different connectors and different operating systems and things weren't very compatible with each other. And the new stuff was coming out literally year over year, and it was really expensive, but also it was going down over time. And now the market's kind of evened out, right? There's basically two main architectures, and you know, it is what it is, but you can get a phone now and it lasts for a couple of years, and it's not like it's crazy out of date or anything like that. I think the electric cars are getting to be like that. But also from a modification perspective, I think they're not there yet. We're just starting to get the aftermarket involved and for it to become a gearhead thing. Again, plenty of stuff on aesthetics and making the car look how you want. Lots of stuff coming now for, you know, wheels and brakes and suspension and handling, and even a few things for controls and whatnot, but still not anything really like hardware. But it is coming, and I think one day it will get there. And frankly, if I can have a full-size car like this that I can modify the way I do my slot cars or my RC cars, I'm all about it. So there is one car on the market right now at an affordable level that I think does kind of fit the bill, and that's the Tesla Model 3 Performance. Again, I know there's controversy around Tesla itself, and also just the car itself. Again, the whole only the center screen and not having a regular gauge cluster and all those kind of funky things like that. But that car is the most affordably priced car that is still a performance version, and it has an aftermarket going for it. A really robust aftermarket going for it. In fact, I know that SSB Designs, who does a lot of Evo stuff, is doing uprights for it for really doing the suspension getting into autocross. I know that people are taking them to SEC Nationals and things like that and really getting after it. So that one is probably like the Model T of this hot rodding generation. So soon we'll get the Model A, and then we'll get the 32 Ford, and then like everything else will snowball from there. But we're like, that's just where we're at. So if you want to get in on the cutting edge, I think that's a good way to go. If you've got the bucks for it, and you've got an RS e-tron GT or something like that, that's awesome. I just don't see companies really making stuff for them yet that's substantial, right? That's in a way that you can replace like you do an RC car or a slot car. But we will get there. We will get there one day. And I hope to make a follow-up to this video when that day comes. And maybe, just maybe, there'll be an EV here in the garage next to my gas cars. Because in the end, it's all about how the car makes you feel. When you drive it, do you connect with it? Is it something that just brings you all of that gearhead joy? And I could see that that is going to be something one day, and I'm excited for that day to come. So until next time, thanks for watching.